Hey, what's up everyone? Victor Logan coming at you with another video. And today this is going to be another one of those videos that's not specifically geared towards headshot photography. It's something for photographers, and I figured I would share it primarily because I can't stand typing it, especially if I have a lot to say. So as you notice, I post up, quite a few different things. So here's the question. Let me see if I can pull up. All right, so the question is, what camera and equipment would you recommend to buy for someone just getting into fashion/commercial photography, looking into low-cost, effective equipment that's beginner-friendly? Yeah. So, for those guys who are photographers, stop laughing, stop snickering to yourself. We all know the answer to this question. I think we know the answers to this question. The answer that I would give if somebody asked me that question, and I'm not trying to be a smart guy about it, I'm just being honest, the answer I would give is that there is no such thing. All right, if you're talking about something that is low cost, when it comes to photography, there's no such thing as low cost. Everything is expensive. All right, effective equipment that's beginner friendly. There is no such thing. You know what's beginner friendly? Your smartphone. That's beginner friendly. All right. If you can press buttons, you can take pictures. All right. So that works. All right. And that doesn't cost you nearly as much. Some of you already have like smartphones now, and as you've probably discovered, there are a lot of apps that are being created or that are already available that can allow you to do things that you were only able to do with a dedicated camera. For example, if you have like a Galaxy 9, I think it is, and above, if you have like iPhone 10, somewhere along there, there is actually apps that allow you to control an off-camera flash. And I always said to myself that once smartphones have the ability to control off-camera flash, the game is pretty much over for a lot of photographers that call themselves professionals. So that's it. Depending on what kind of, phone you have, you've got half the battle won already. Now, obviously, if you want to give an impression because you're saying that you want to get into fashion and commercial, and you want to give the semblance of looking impressive and looking important, the first thing I would recommend before you even jump into buying anything is, and somebody had already mentioned it before, is to really do your research. Read a lot. Read books. Understand the exposure triangle. Understand the difference between prime lenses and zoom lenses. Understand focal ranges. Understand aperture, shutter speed, ISO. Understand the difference between constant light and flash or strobes. There is so much information that you need to digest before you can even get to the point of finding something that you say is low cost, effective equipment that is beginner friendly. Right? Like I said before, if you're thinking about getting into something that's beginner friendly, use your smartphone. Start with your smartphone. All right? And then the next thing I would do is I would find a way to support the smartphone, because obviously you don't want to be necessarily taking pictures with the smartphone, holding the smartphone and taking pictures. You'd want to get something that allows you to support the smartphone so it doesn't move around. So you want to get a tripod. And you definitely want to get something that will hold the smartphone in place while you put it on a tripod. Right? Now, because the smartphone is so inexpensive, well, since the smartphone is so lightweight, you don't have to get like the $300-400 tripod. You can manage with like a $25-30 tripod and play around with that. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be like, that is like the most stupid shit I've ever heard anyone say. And I know some people are mad and they're paranoid and they're scared because they feel like the smartphone generation is going to eat up a lot of photographers as the technology gets better. And the truth of the matter is, yes, that's exactly what's going to happen to a certain degree. It is going to eat up a lot of photographers because the technology is improving. And so not to diminish what this person is asking for, but if you get a chance to actually experiment with your smartphone, do the research, you're going to find that a lot of the settings that are available on your smartphones are the same kind of settings that you're going to be able to get on a camera. So instead of, you know, getting your smartphone and clicking on one of the pre-made adjustments, experiment. Go online, do some YouTube videos, watch some YouTube videos, and see what these things do. Okay, so for example, your shutter speed controls, you know, how fast the shutter opens and closes, which is kind of irrelevant on a smartphone because there is no physical shutter. It's all, you know, electronics, but you still want to get an idea of what it is if you decide now you want to go and actually get a physical camera, whether it's a DSLR or a mirrorless or whatever. All right. And then of course you want to learn about ISO, and then you want to learn about aperture. Like I said, most of the competent camera phones since 2016, 2017 are going to allow you to be able to experiment with those settings, and so that you're going to be much more comfortable and ready when you do decide to get yourself a digital SLR or a mirrorless camera. And let's be honest, the only reason why you're going to really need one of these things is because they allow you the ability to change lenses. And that's one of the big deals about cameras, is the ability to change lenses. So you can go with prime lenses, which basically are the lens are just one focal range, versus a zoom, which is a lot more flexible because now you can zoom in, you can adjust through different focal ranges. You can go wide angle or you can zoom in on something. And then you have what's called fast glass, and that basically means it's glass that allows more light to come in, which means they're good for low light situations, versus slower lenses, which are very sharp, but they don't allow in a lot of light. You know, you'd have to actually have the camera, have the shutter open for a certain amount of time. And, you know, once again, a lot of this stuff you're going to have to research and learn on your own before you actually get to that stage. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you've already been there and you've done that. You've already experimented with your camera phone. You've already learned about the exposure triangle. And now you actually want to get like an actual camera and lenses and all that other gear. The first thing I would recommend doing is, before you even get all that other stuff, get software. Because if you're already playing around with your phone and you're using your phone to take pictures, you probably want to have some sort of software that allows you to make adjustments to those images. All right. And of course, pretty much almost every manufacturer software has support for images that were created on smartphones. So it doesn't matter if you're with Adobe, Photoshop / Lightroom, or Capture One, or one of my personal favorites, On One Photo Raw. A bunch of these softwares allows you to make edits to images that you capture with your camera, with your camera phone. So that I would definitely look into exploring first. That's going to take a chunk of your money depending on what you get. The next thing obviously you want to do is start exploring light, okay? Because one of the big problems I find with a lot of people that want to get into photography is they're just like me when I first got into it. Did not understand light, did not understand how to use light, how to manipulate light. And so until you start really getting familiar with flashes, then the only alternative you're going to actually have is using constant light, or learning how to use reflectors if you're outside in sunlight and the reflector can shine light onto your subject and that sort of thing. All right. I would learn how to use the lights, learn how to use them in conjunction with your shutter speed and your aperture and your ISO, so that you can get yourself some nice crisp images. And then of course the software is going to allow you to enhance images even further. All right. So if you've got your software and you've got your lighting, which is stuff that you could use right now if you have a camera phone. At the point you decide now you want to step into actually using a, full-blown camera and lenses, I would strongly recommend, if you're in that kind of tight budget situation, look at used cameras and lenses. And specifically, I would look into what are known as crop sensor camera bodies. And I think you can get them through Canon, you can get them through Nikon, you can get them through Sony. Those are the major three players. If you want to, take a walk on the wild side, you could probably go with Olympics or even Pentax, but I would kind of just stick with the big three I just mentioned, only because the support that they have is so much more robust. If you really want to be like dare to be different, you could actually go with Fuji, which is also a player in the game. But I would kind of stick with that group right there, right? Go with crop sensor bodies. And the reason why I say go with crop sensor bodies is because, number one, the crop sensor bodies are always going to be a lot less expensive than the full frame bodies. And if you're doing a lot of close-up work, a crop sensor actually allows you to work at a tighter field of view. All right. So let's just say, for example, if you're using like a 50mm lens on a crop censored body, the lens is still 50mm, but because the crop sensor is cropped, you're actually getting a field of view of like 85. This is not going to make sense to you until you actually try it for yourself. And in order for you to understand it, you'd have, you can go on YouTube and you can see the difference between crop sensor and full frame, and it will make much more sense to you. But to keep you in the budget, you want to look at crop sensors first. And then, touching on the lenses, if you already have a tripod, I would suggest going for a zoom lens. And you don't really have to spend a whole crap load of money on a zoom lens. I know some people, as soon as they got a camera, the first thing they did was they bought themselves like a 24-70 or a 70-200, only because that's what the pros are using. Even though they haven't learned how to be a photographer yet, that's what they invested in. I would say go for an inexpensive zoom lens. And there's a whole bunch of different ranges. You can get 18-35. You can get, I think you can get like a 15-35. You can get like a 10-18mm. Those are like really wide angle lenses. If you want to get something a little bit more zoom, you can once again go with a 50mm, which is going to give you like an 80mm field of view, or you could get an 85, which is going to give you closer to like 110-ish, 30-ish field of view. But then, of course, then you have to learn how to back up and move forward when it comes to your shots, understand composition, understanding how the light falls on your person, and all these sort of things. So there's a lot to understand. There's a lot to learn, and that's part of the reason why I say, if you're seriously thinking about getting into this venture, start learning with your smartphone first. Get yourself some lights, play around with the lights, experiment, take pictures, and see what kind of images you get. And then once you feel comfortable that you understand the triangle as it exists, then you can go into exploring actual camera bodies and lenses and that sort of thing. And once again, I would strongly encourage you, don't buy anything brand new. Go with the used product, and go with the used crop sensor body. And like I said, I know some people are going to be like, why would you do that? Number one, if you have a tight budget and you really can't afford to spend a whole crap load of money, it only makes sense to go with something that's used. And I would only purchase the used stuff from a small group of vendors, all right? Not including Amazon. You can get stuff through Amazon, but Amazon tends to sell product close to retail, even for stuff that's already been used. They still tend to sell closer to that retail within the limit that they can get away with. So the primary venues I would recommend that you look at exploring used camera bodies and lenses from is B&H, Adorama, Borrow Lens, Lens Authority, and KEH. So that's like 5 different companies that basically do the same thing. All right. And so if you go to one company and you're interested in getting a crop sensor body and they don't have what you're looking for, you can always go to another one and another one. And the nice thing is that all these companies have a high level of accountability. So it's not like if you go on eBay and you purchase something from eBay because it's much less expensive, but then you don't know what you're getting. All of the gear that these companies sell, they've inspected it, and in some cases they've done maybe some minor refurbishing of themselves. They might have cleaned up certain things cosmetically just to improve the appearance, so you don't just get something that's really shabby. All right, and they will tell you what the condition of these pieces of equipment are. Some of these things they sell just for parts, while others they sell because they are functioning pieces of gear. Maybe there might be a couple of issues with it. Maybe they got scratches on them. Maybe the lens has some micro scratches, but usually they'll let you know that they don't affect your ability to take quality images. So from an aesthetic standpoint, if you were to try and sell something like this and it's got scratches on it, somebody would say, well, I can't justify spending what you're asking for because it's got scratches on it. And so they can sell these things at a significantly lower cost. And so I would always recommend to somebody, if you can, if you have the courage to do it, you know, it doesn't hurt for you to buy either refurbished or buy these things used. And I'm talking about buy your cameras used, buy your lenses used. All right. So now we've started with learning on your camera phone. We've got your lights, your constant lights, and maybe some reflectors. You've got software now that you've been experimenting with to make clean adjustments to your images that you've taken with your camera phone. And now you started exploring purchasing a camera body and lenses. Go with the least expensive camera body that you can, and then with the rest of the money, get yourself like a nice little quality lens. I would recommend going with a zoom lens just for now. Something that allows you to go fairly wide. Excuse me. Something that allows you to go fairly wide, but allows you to also zoom in. A popular option is like a 24 to 105 or 24 to 70. They are kind of heavy on a crop body, so you could go with something a little bit smaller. You could even get yourself one of those super zoom lenses, which starts at maybe like about 15 millimeters and goes all the way up to like 200, some crazy number, something like that. The image quality is not going to nearly be as good as a high-end lens, but once again, you want to get into this and you want to get more familiar with, you know, certain lens ranges and certain focal ranges and that sort of thing. Learning how to work with f-stops and the aperture, and, you know, once again, all the things that you learn on your camera phone, you're going to apply those experiences to the actual DSLR. And I feel like starting off with what I recommended is going to put you in a better position that when you do decide to go for a professional piece of gear, you're going to be a little bit more prepared for what to expect, at least when it comes to the exposure triangle. Then the next challenge, of course, is just learning your focal ranges and figuring out what focal ranges you like to work at and, you know, explore. I can tell you right now, from my own personal experience, I started with a crop sensor body, a Canon T3i, and I bought myself a manual 15mm lens. It's the first lens I ever got. And I'll tell you, I love that lens. But my eyes are bad, and so I had to let it go because I was not able to like focus properly and get sharp images just because my eyes are that bad. So that was the way I learned. And I also learned how to use flash at the very beginning. Even before I learned how to use constant light, I learned how to use flash. So everybody is going to be different. Everyone is going to go through the process in a much different fashion and all these other things. But once again, if you're talking about, you know, wanting to something that's going to be cost effective, user friendly, starting out with your camera phone, getting to learn how to use constant lights, those are going to be the best tools for you. Then working with the software, like I said, you can get software for whatever you're doing with your smartphone. So you can do professional edits on your smartphone or on your PC. Get a good tripod so that you can keep your phone steady. And, you know, once again, from that point on, you just start expanding and exploring. Let me just close this little thing right here. I'm sorry. Okay. And that's it, guys. So I know this has been a long-winded thing. I'm not even going to bother edit. I'm just going to just shoot it straight out there to the world and let everybody figure it out for themselves. Thanks again for watching this video. As always, if you have any questions, comments, opinions, feedback, you know, let me know. I always appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, guys, check me later.